And share the screen. All right. Okay. So April 9th, 2026, Node.js Build group meeting. Let me see, make sure. Yeah, okay, we got one attendees, two word. There we go. All right, so first in the list, clarifying policy usage of production tokens in GitHub Actions. Let's see. Hold on, are you guys seeing my tab or? Oh,
yes,
hold on.
we see the.
Yep. I think I'm sharing the tab. Hold on one second.
Okay. Yeah, we should see the markdown.
Yeah. Okay, now do you see my entire screen?
Looks blank on my end.
Not at the moment, no. It's not showing you sharing anything.
Let's try that again. Node.js Build, share. How about now?
Yes, we see like the Zoom window. Yep, there we go.
All right, sorry about that. Okay, so clarify policy usage of production tokens in GitHub Actions. I think Melissa is not here. Any updates on this?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think this needs someone to force. if so, we didn't have a clear consensus because we're not really making that we're not being forced to make that decision. So I guess unless Ulysses pushes this or someone else wants to push, some of the automation onto GitHub Actions, I'm imagining this is just going to sit here. So yeah.
Okay, I guess we can wait until it's available next time.
Yeah, maybe. And this is one of those where it's like, rather than just asking for like blanket permission, it's easier to have concrete, like, someone's opened an actual pull request that needs a production token, and then we have the discussion about that particular case rather than trying to generalize policy onto hypotheticals. Because I suspect there are some things in that issue that we might be less concerned about that's not true. Like we will be concerned if the tokens were leaked, but I think there are some that are probably more concerning than others in terms of the fallout and the blast radius should something get leaked. So I think it's not limited to GitHub Actions, but it's like there's varying degrees of varying layers of like access and trust, and it's that particular one is around the email stuff. So at the moment, when someone asks for a change to one of the email aliases that we manage through Mailgun, somebody on the infra team has to manually deploy the changes, which, to be honest, is not a great deal of effort. But yeah, I mean that could be automatable. It just depends whether someone is actually willing to to, I guess, champion it and be responsible for, like, securing, getting the token there and securing it.
Okay, I guess so. Next time that he's available, we'll ask for more details and check if he still wants it here.
Yeah. I think there's like a lot of things in the build working group, which is there are opportunities that we can make changes to processes, but it does require someone to have be clearer about what's actually going to happen and then be able to drive that. So while it's very easy to make suggestions about things we could be doing instead of what we're doing at the moment, they're not going to change automatically. They're not going to magically change. Someone is actually going to have to volunteer to make the changes and to be able to keep the, depends what it is, but what if it's some like function that we need to keep running, that function needs to keep running even if you're making the transition to something different. So yeah,
we need someone to take responsibility basically and do the work. So.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it there for now then. Next item would be Rust.
Yes. So we are making progress. The table in here is up to date as far as I know. I believe I've identified all the platforms we need to update. Abderrahim and I and Stuart have been working on the AX machines. It's not quite there yet, but it's pretty much, it is well on the way of being done. So I'm confident we can get that done. I did Alpine this week, and that I believe is the final Linux machine that we're testing Node 26 on at the moment. So I did talk to Ryan about macOS, and he asked for clarification that it's only 10.15 and not 10.13, which I believe is the case for Node 26. So hopefully that can be done as well. But at the moment, that will be in his hands. And then Stefan's been working through Windows. He's updated. There's another PR to update the Ansible stuff for Windows to install Rust. So I've got another PR in Node to try and use Rust for all temporal by auto-detecting whether it's there and then attempting to build temporal in Node. That's got a few other problems, some of it to do with like V8 and whether your ICU is the vended ICU you have in Node or a external ICU or no ICU. V8 has build problems in the latter two cases. So yeah, we are progressing. I think it's still a bit nip and tuck as to whether this is going to make 26.00. But yeah, it is progressing. I think there's another issue about upgrading, probably not on the agenda, but there is another issue about upgrading the Rust toolchain and CLang version on the RHEL systems, but that's mainly to track the changes in upstream V8. So that is also on the radar, but that's not. We should do it, but it's not fundamentally critical to getting temporal building in Node at the moment, but it will be in the future. And that might
Are
be
you talking about the upgrading task?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's something I'll talk about after this issue because we gotta look into that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the other part of the Rust stuff is that for temporal in Node we need a V8 update. So there are 2 PRs open at the moment for V8 updates in Node, and neither of them have got to a state yet where they can be merged. So I can't imagine we'll do a 26 release without a V8 update, but I mean that's the other part of the puzzle to get temporal in Node is we've got the toolchain side, which we're covering here, and then we've got the actual building side and the V8 counterpart of that, all in the Node repo. So yeah, it's coming together, but still a little bit unknown as to whether it definitely will get there for 26. The initial 26 release.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's that issue. Anything else on the topic?
Not that I'm aware of, but I mean, like it's possible we may encounter other things as we try and, like, for example, when we actually try and run the AX builds, the Rust thing. So yeah, like Windows, we didn't realize there was going to be a problem with Windows until we actually tried to run the CI against it. So Steven has fixed that by offering a PR to the PR, so offering a commit to the PR that I've been working on, and also making some changes to the way Rust is installed on the Windows machines. So yeah, to the best of my knowledge, I think we've got things in place. But yeah, I mean, things like macOS, I don't know. Maybe that will throw up another spanner. But we can only deal with them when we found them. So
Exactly. I mean, hiccups are expected, right? Like the big
yeah.
ending issue that S3 and Andy broke.
Yep. Yeah,
We
yeah. I
didn't
mean,
know
that
the
was
problem is
great
there.
that we found that very early and managed to patch it.
Yeah. It happens. It's okay. All right. Moving on. Web infra and Cloudflare access. And I think Ryan is here.
Oh, nice.
Two. There you go.
Hello.
All
Oh,
right.
Good morning.
Okay. So regarding this issue, are there any specific updates that we should take note of?
Oh, that was compiler two. What's the issue number on this again? I just want to look at it on my own screen real quick.
4194.
4194. Thanks. Yeah, there is Cloudflare just introduced a new GitHub, or I'm sorry, Cloudflare organizations beta that I'm trying to get us into, which would allow for a lot better management organization of like the users and groups and things. And so that's where this is focused right now. As far as the standardization goes, then we can set, policies per group, per user. I think the main problem is that Cloudflare, any API access is locked behind a account key, and the only permission level that can create account keys is super admins. And so that's generally one of the things that people need is like, well, we need an API key, and so just figuring out who gets to have the super admin to be able to generate those is an issue. But yeah, other than that, that's the only updates on this so far, is that we should look at. I'll update the issue right now to mention the new Cloudflare thing.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else on this? Moving on. Upgrading the tool chain. Anything left on this specific problem?
the other thing that you opened, which was to upgrade the
That's the next
Clang
step. Yeah.
compiler, and yeah, that one, yeah. So that I'll try and get around to at some point, or maybe someone else will get around to it. But yeah, that hasn't been done yet. But yeah, I think that's the one remaining thing. Can't remember if there
But
was anything else.
this could be treated as like a separate issue.
Yeah.
On the topic of just moving to Clang in general.
So yes, the remaining things, the AX platform.
Okay.
Yes, and I've been doing some. I had one of the machines for testing that I've been doing with the builds, and I got it to a point where I got it to build, and then I ran into some issues with linking with the export file, and then I found when I build with Clang, it adds to the libraries, because the export file script basically goes through all the .a's, gets the symbols, and puts it in an export file, but it adds some hidden visibility things that Clang puts in the .a's. So when you do that, the linker complains. So I made some changes to the export file to like filter those hidden ones and don't add them. And then I got things to build and link and ran the tests. So now I need to make a PR with those changes. The one question I had was part of those changes was to add V8, like a V8 cherry pick some V8 commits that are not in the current main V8 that we have in Node. But I noticed like those PRs that Michael Sassos has out there for the 14.6, I think that already has the changes that we need, or that I cherry picked. So with my PR, I don't know if we should how to proceed with that. Should I go ahead and make the PR with those cherry picks, or add on to that 14.6 update, or how should I proceed with that?
That's a good question. I think Michael's out this week, so we can't really ask him until next week, which is getting close to getting closer and closer to the 26th release. And there's the Collab Summit on Tuesday and Wednesday as well, which I don't know if he'll be there or not in person. How about you open a PR with the cherry picks? Do you know how to cherry pick the V8 stuff? If not, I can talk to you offline outside this meeting about that. And then we can just tag Michael and say, you know, if he thinks it'll be better to or easier to merge this to the V8 update PRs, we could do that. Otherwise, we can merge these first, and then, you know, the V8 updates can, you know, effectively make those cherry picks obsolete, because the V8 update will just overwrite the whole V8 tree.
Yeah, I think for the V8 cherry, I'll tap ping you offline. I kind of did it like in a non-standard way, so I want to like do it the way I know there's.
Yeah, you should. Actually, I've got a feeling we've done this before and it didn't work for you properly. The like no core utils V8 backport command.
Yeah, that was a couple. Yeah, I remember that too. We had issues with the installing the Node core utils on my machine.
Yeah, we can tackle that outside of this meeting. So yeah.
But yeah, so the story there is that there's for AIX, I have changes. I got it working. I just need to get those changes upstreamed, and we'll be good with AIX to build the Clang.
Yeah, because I think I can't remember the state of the 14.6 PR, but I think the 14.8 PR is failing to build with GCC. Or was it? No, it's failing. I'm trying to remember. I think it was failing to build with GCC, which I think maybe Joy looked at and fixed, or has a proposed fix. But I can't remember if that was the same reason the AX build was failing, or maybe the AX build is failing for some other reason. But yeah, I don't know whether it'd be easier to fix that or to reattempt it with the Clang changes. Yeah, swap into Clang and then seeing if we still have the problem. So I guess one of the things we could do, you know, it wouldn't be the PR to land, but maybe we could take one of the V8 update PR, one of the branches for the V8 updates, and then try and apply the, you know, whatever changes we've got for AX on top of that, and just run that through the CI, so we can see if that looks like it's going to make the problem go away or not.
Right. Which platform is still using GCC?
Well, at the moment, AX until we swap it over, and then SmartOS. But I mean, he's talking to Dan. He was talking to Dan here, but he's also talking to Dan in like the V8 update PR. So I don't know. I'm guessing
we don't know what the progress is in SmartOS.
We could go look at. There were suggestions. I mean, there's a separate issue in the build repo. If you go look at the issues, there is one specifically for SmartOS, and maybe like going to. I don't know the exact terminology. The SmartOS stuff uses this package source stuff, and then update SmartOS machines. That one, down that one. So there's some discussion in here about not wholly about GCC, but about SmartOS in general, and they talk about LLVM and stuff. So I don't know. There's a discussion going on.
Okay.
I just noticed that I got tagged in that SmartOS one.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think the thing is, I guess it depends what the state of those V8 update PRs are and whether this is blocked or anything. I would have to go back and look at the PRs.
Okay, so essentially the remaining platforms would be AIX and SmartOS.
at the moment. So Michael did suggest downgrading, compiling with GCC and Node for 26 to experimental, but was kind of talked out of it. So we are still trying to move platforms to C-Lang, but we haven't yet downgraded GCC support in Node to experimental, or something below the officially supported thing. But I mean, it'll probably be the next version of Node if it's not this one.
I mean, if nobody maintains V8 with GCC, it won't even compile. So
Well, yeah.
yeah, it will eventually break completely. I'm surprised it's still not broken at this point because I'm not. Are we maintaining GCC right now, Brahim? I don't think we are. Are you?
Yeah, we moved our focus to Clang, you
Clang,
know.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
yeah,
was
I
for a
mean,
bit, but then yeah, just we moved to focus to Clang because that's going to be the future anyways, and
yep.
it's very. I can see Michael Zassel's frustration. It's frustrating because
Yeah. So I think from what I remember, V8, or at least one of the two, or maybe both of those V8 update PRs, is broken on GCC 12. So we've bumped Node 26's GCC requirement to 13. But there was the other discussion about making it experimental or not even like properly supported. That one was being talked down for the moment. But I mean, we are trying to move everything that we're producing the binaries for to C-Lang. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment. I mean, most things has been switched over, and then, like I said, like the other question about what's still building on GCC, it is just AX, which we're in the process of trying to get moved, and then SmartOS, which there is a discussion about, but yeah, I've not been paying as much attention to that, other than I'm aware it's happening.
Yeah, can I talk about the SmartOS thing real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I was under the impression that there was a SmartOS team that would be kind of taking over managing these machines that knows how SmartOS works, because I don't. I know just enough to like kind of limped it along and got these things installed and running. But what I don't want to do is like be responsible for trying to manage an OS that I know very little about and try and get compilers working and try and get things functioning.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how we ended up responsible for what feels like almost like an experimental OS. I mean, I know it's been a long, long, long history,
Well,
but somewhere
yeah,
along the line, I feel like we need to hand it back over to the SmartOS folks and be like, if you want SmartOS on Node, you make it happen and hand
I
us
think
machines.
the challenge has always been then getting up to speed with how the build works and manages everything, and yeah.
Well, I mean, like the Lungarch folks, we never hear from them, but they have a machine. I think
Yeah,
that
but
we
that's not even in a. So, like you said, there's the history thing, which is like the Lunarch thing is experimental because it's never got to a stage where Node has been building it or even testing on it. Yeah, the SmartOS stuff comes from the days when Node was managed by Joyent. Yeah, Node came from Joyent, so it was a it was a higher tier platform.
Yeah.
It was only like since the IIJS fork, which is what Node today is the IIJS fork. So
right.
it is why SmartOS it's kind of still there as a sort of nod to the heritage, but it's kind of it got downgraded mainly because at one point people working for Joint at the time said that their customers get Node from the rebuilds they do in their own in their package source repo. So the binaries that we were producing on the website were I can't remember the exact words, but it was like the implication was that they didn't feel that the binaries at that moment in time, it was the feedback was that we didn't have to build those binaries, so we stopped. I think the current people looking after SmartOS were saying like, well, it's a shame that we're not building the binaries, but never really down that road. So yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah,
We are testing against it, but like you said, it's I think we're in this position where there is a team that if you ping them and ask them for technical advice, they give the technical advice, but then they say like we don't have the access to the machine. Well, yeah, is that right? They don't have access to the machines, or they don't have the ability or understanding of how we manage the machines to figure out how to So I think this is one of those like we've got groups of people staring at each other, waiting for the other side.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering if there's some better way we can solve this. Like maybe even introduce some sort of different side path where they've got, we've got the build and we've got the infra and we've got the test group and we've also got a smart OS group or something that has keys for their machines. They've got the ability to access and manage them. They've got the ability to, if they want new machines, we can, introduce them to the inventory. Like just something that allows like I touch these machines once every like 9 months or a year or whatever, and then I forget everything I know about SmartOS because it's all very different and it's not something I'm going to use outside of this, so I forget it all, and then something changes and we have to go fix it, and I don't, it's a huge burden, and I just feel like if we could put that burden on people that are already got the skills and already have the knowledge and already know how to provision the machines and make them function, that would be ideal. Because I'm seeing these updates, and I'm just like I'm not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I guess the difference here is that we've got, there's the people who have the knowledge of the platform, and there's people that know about how Node.js Build deploy things with Ansible and things like that, and they're not necessarily in sync at the moment, right?
Right. And what I'm saying is, can we build a different arm of, not using Ansible, not using something else, and just being like, here's your machines.
Well,
you're connected via a Jenkins agent. We've got the agent.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, we have done that for the Mac OS machines. They used to be Ansible, and now they're on Packer. They're completely set. The Mac OS stuff is now a completely separate setup to the rest.
Yeah.
Were the Packer images not set up with the Ansible scripts then? I assumed it would just be a deployment of an image that had been created with Ansible.
That's what I thought we were going to do, but that's not what ended up happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I wonder then if what needs to happen is, I don't know if it's something you can facilitate, Ryan, but maybe there needs to be a meeting with like people from both Build and the SmartOS folks from.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing I'm trying to figure out is there appetite for somehow giving them their own branch that they can work on, or giving them their own space so that they've got access to the machines, they can provision them however they want, and then we could coordinate on making sure that they're in the testing matrix and in the and right, because they're not part of the release cycle at all, right?
Yeah, that's correct. They're not in the release cycle, so yeah, I think we should be able to carve out some way of doing it, because I think, for example, that if they would be people that would fall under a category that, while they might not be as well known to the rest of the project, they are obviously working for a company that has a vested interest in that platform. So there's a line in the build stuff about responsibility and like trust, and part of it is that this working group does put a bit more trust on people volunteering from companies where if you were to go rogue,
yeah,
you have real world consequences, because yeah. So I think there is that possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just this just keeps coming up where it gets sort of neglected, then finally at the last minute, like something happens, and it's like, I would love to solve this ongoing so that nobody has to stare and nobody has to play telephone with the technical requirements, like.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to find out from that team. I'll have a meeting with that team and just understand whether they have a concern with taking it over, if there's any reason why they wouldn't be able to use the Ansible scripts to maintain them, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think we need to resolve this one way or another, and I think having you do all the work is probably not the right answer. Certainly if you're having to figure out the actual SmartOS bits of it as well. That's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
good.
well, between the SmartOS and the MNX.com, like how
Yeah.
the provisioning works on that, like the whole stack is foreign to me, and it's
Sure.
um, it- so it just I would love to have someone that speaks that language doing the intricate work, of making it work out. So I'm looking at Dan MCD's thing about, educate folks like the Node.js project about Illumos. It's like that's not what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping someone who's already educated will take this on.
Where-
I'm not.
Where was that stated out of interest? I didn't.
I'm looking on the update to SmartOS machines 4259
Okay. Yeah.
issue that.
I have an Illumos mug for my tea. Does that count?
I think you're now overqualified to take this on, Stuart.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for volunteering.
Damn it!
I mean, there were a few other names mentioned, and yeah, I don't know. I like you. This is they even talk about OmniOS, which I think is a separate thing from Illumos. So they're all related in the same family of stuff, but it's like, yeah, I don't know what they're. This is now going to a domain that I see the words and I don't quite follow the context.
Well, yeah, it's not even clear to me if like we're supporting the equivalent of Ubuntu as opposed to the equivalent of Linux. Like I'm, like is IllumoS what we're really supposed to be testing for? And that helps SmartOS and OmniOS, or I don't even know. It's not clear to me how this stuff is all structured and what it all does. So I would just love for somebody who has a vested interest in this to know what decisions need to be made to be able to know what should be tested, when it should be changed, when it should be updated. The whole management life cycle of this is way outside of my wheelhouse.
Why are we asking Dan to lead this then?
Because Dan works for MNX, that is the company that is sponsoring not just the SmartOS machines, but a few other infrastructure machines, and that's historical.
So
yeah,
who
I mean,
owns
Again,
SmartOS, basically?
joint.
yeah, yeah, MNX was where Joint spun off all of the node related stuff. Yeah, they stepped in with sponsorship when Equinix withdrew one of the sponsorships that we had, one of the two that both have gone now. But yeah.
So who else from this list owns this? Like, who else can you ping to actually do the work?
I can't remember if Josh is still there, or he was there and he's now not there. Anton was IBM, and I can't remember why he's on this list.
When
yeah,
I'm sorry, Richard, go ahead.
No, I think Wyatt, I haven't seen him for a very long time, so I suspect he's not involved.
The other thing that's worth mentioning is that when I initially took this over, when the Equinix stuff happened and this all changed over and we were working closely with MNX, it was Brianna that was the I think one of the founders and also one of the people that were there since the beginning, like was part of securing the trademark and doing all kinds of deeply valuable stuff to the project. Well, she's no longer with MNX, and that's who I worked with directly and closely on all this information. So I haven't worked with any of these people at all. So I don't even have a relationship with most of these folks. That's who helped me. That's who got me to where I'm at. But so again, ideally, this would be something I could hand back over and be like, I don't know what's going on here. And the people that I would ask for help are no longer there either.
Sounds like we need to update this list too. I mean, nobody else is replying except Dan, so.
I've seen Jonathan reply, but only when he's pinged in issues. So
yeah, same with Jay Perkin. I've seen him reply a couple of times.
That's who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Jonathan. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So going back to the original issue, upgrading Clang and Rust, I just wanted to ask on AIX or any other operating system, what versions of Clang and Rust are we using right now?
We have Clang 20 installed on the CI machines as well as Rust 1.88. So we followed
That's great.
these two.
Okay. Okay. How about, so we're not planning to upgrade any other platforms at the moment?
We are not, because the reason that this issue exists is because of the upstream work you've been doing with V8. This is mainly a V8 constraint because Node is just not picky about the pickiness about Rust versions and being so sensitive to Rust versions just doesn't seem to, at the moment, to be an issue for Node. It's definitely an issue for building V8 with V8's build scripts and the whole build environment that V8 has. But Node seems perfectly happy across a range of Rust versions. And I validated that. We have a range of Rust versions installed. I think like Alpine is like 1.9 on one of them. Perfectly happy on that. And then some of the others like Ubuntu, I think Ubuntu is on 1.8.2. And for Node, it's perfectly happy compiling the temporal stuff.
And
So,
for building V8 itself on these platforms, you're using Chromium toolchain?
no. We are using the GYP build scripts in Node. So unless
for V8.
So even for building V8, we're using the GYP build scripts in Node. So unless there's something that hasn't been translated to GYP, which is always possible, we're just not hitting any problems at the moment with Clang 19 and well, I can't remember if they're all 19, but they're at least 19. And whatever version of Rust is being picked up on the operating systems where we've installed it.
Okay, because so you're not hitting that Adler problem on
No,
other platforms that are
we
using
are not
Chromium.
even hitting the Adler problem in the Node builds with whatever version of Rust. It's only in the V8 builds.
That's what I mean. On the V8 builds on other platforms.
But we are only running the V8 builds on Linux, on Intel, which is Ubuntu based, and Linux on PowerPC and Linux on 390, which are RHEL based. We're not running the V8 CI using V8's Chromium build repo on any other platform in Node.
Okay, so you said x86 is included, right?
x64 is included, but that's on an Ubuntu-based system rather than a RHEL-based system.
And what Rust
That
version
one,
is
I think that one is pulling
Chromium toolchain probably.
Chromium toolchain, yes. So I have installed Rust 1.8.2, but I don't think that's being used in the V8 build. I think V8 build is using whatever Rust is in. You'll know the repository, whatever third-party repository that their Rust toolchain is in, for the V8 builds. But then it builds Node, and Node builds fine with, or at the moment it's building fine with Rust 1.8.2.
Okay, that explains. Okay. So,
I mean, like I said, it might change in the future, but at the moment that's where we are. So that's what we'll come with. Yeah.
So I guess going back to this issue again, once the work on AX is done, I guess it's safe to take this off build agenda. I'm not really sure if we're tracking SmartOS changes here.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we still need to talk about the SmartOS stuff, there is the other issue that's specific to SmartOS.
Yeah, this issue here.
Yeah, so yeah, I think we could take this other one off once we get the AX one done.
Okay.
Because we are releasing binaries for Node on AX, so we really absolutely have to get this done if we want to make the swap, which we do before Node 26 goes out. So whereas we are testing SmartOS, and I think we need to try and at least keep the CI going for the. When I say we, I mean the project as a whole, not just people here on the call. But it's not on the critical binary release path for Node. So because we're not releasing binaries on it for SmartOS. So while it is, it's not that we're ignoring it completely, but it's not on the critical path for Node 26.
Good. All right, thank you. Anything else on this topic?
Probably not until another couple of months when we have this whole conversation again. I mean, that's where it is, isn't it? It's like this is going to be a never-ending. It's not even an arms race. It's just yeah. I even saw not V8 related. There was some other dependency where they've started adopting like C++23. So again, Node isn't there yet, but yeah, also all these sorts of pressures about moving. I think there was a conversation V8 related, but they've not got there yet about going up to the next C++ standard. Does that ring any bells?
23?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the topic is never ending, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
So just to
All right.
confirm, from Dan's last request in there, please email me and Jonathan. I guess that nobody's done that yet. Is that correct? Nobody's actually got in touch with them to see if they can give any assistance.
I suspect not that I know of. So
Yeah.
the person that was talking to them in the issue was Michael, but Michael's on vacation. And even that, I don't know if he was actually actively talking outside of the issue, or if it's like he's asked the question and hoping, work or suggestions are being made to progress it. And I think, like a lot of things, if there's no evidence that conversations are happening, it probably means they're not happening unless they're happening behind closed doors that nobody knows about, in which case then maybe they're just as well not happening.
Yeah, I suspect if they were happening, someone here would have said so. So yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I literally noticed today that my name was tagged on that issue
understood.
from 2 weeks ago.
That's fine.
Well,
all right.
Moving on to the next issue is extending Azure credits. Anything new on this topic?
Let's see which one. What we're covering in that
3672.
Okay, so there was the latest Azure credit extension was that somebody from Azure's internal Windows on ARM program reached out and said, "Hey, we want to give you guys some credits for this." And then it turns out internally Microsoft has some sort of issue with adding credits to existing credits. Their billing infrastructure is very complex, to say the least. So what they advised is that when we run out of the existing credits, they can give us more credits for that and cover that gap. So we just basically have to wait until we're almost out of credits for that, and then they can give us some more. So Azure crediting is complicated. I wish I had a better answer where it would be easy, but it just seems like we cannot get multiple credits from different angles from different parts of Microsoft and add them all together and use them. We have to keep everything separate. Probably need to have multiple accounts if we want to keep doing this, which we already kind of do. Yeah. That's about all I have to say on that one. So
it's a bit messy then.
yeah, I mean, this happened when the GitHub Open Source Fund was like, "Hey, here's $100,000," and we just could not find a way to put it into our account. There was nothing we could do. So that has ended up, the web team is using that they got some massive GPUs and are trying some things with AI. So we're like, well, go ahead. We can't use it. We can't put it in our current infra and wire everything up to it. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
And that's all we have on the list. Anything else we want to talk about that's not listed here? Doesn't seem like there's anything else. All right then. If there's nothing, I will stop sharing. And
It might also just be worth mentioning that we do have, the unofficial builds and so on. Obviously, we don't treat that as any sort of primary platform, but similar to SmartOS, I guess they're likely to start running into problems if we start requiring CLang and Rust as well in the future. And I don't think anything has been done on any of those platforms to do that, other than my attempts to get RISC-V working with CLang, which does now work, but not Rust yet. So that's going to be an interesting one when people start noticing that these features don't work on those platforms.
Right, but I mean, I'm not stopping anyone from volunteering to work on it, but the whole point of that project was to try and take workload off of this team.
No, absolutely. I'm kind of just pointing out that I don't think anyone's looking at it, and so somebody's probably going to yell at some point, I would imagine. Because
if I'm brutally honest, I would say that unofficial builds as an idea failed, because if you read the README of unofficial builds and the original issues, it was all about hoping that the community would step up to look after all of that. But it feels that it's mainly build or ex-members of build that, when they have the time, look at it and maintain it. So it doesn't actually feel that it succeeded in taking the maintenance away, the burden of maintenance away from the working group, other than, it's not on the critical path anymore, so we kind of can ignore it. But yeah, I mean, if you asked me today whether it would be, if that was worth doing, if we didn't have it already, I would probably say no now. But I mean, it's there, and people are using things from it, and we've got the whole horrible anomaly with the Alpine builds that,
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to mention, is that, we have the Alpine builds, which are published up as official Docker images, despite the fact it's an experimental platform, which is not ideal, I don't think. And
so I think the main problem is that it doesn't matter how many disclaimers we've put on that repository about it being unofficial and you shouldn't be relying on it. We keep getting people coming with issues saying, it's critical that they have it's super urgent, or whatever. And that's not the intent of that repository. If you have a workflow that's dependent on that, then that's not really what that repository was for. And the fact that one of Node's own workflows ended up being reliant on it is unfortunate, but it doesn't change the fact that there should be nothing critical depending on that platform, on that repository, because nothing in that repository is guaranteed to be there. And if it breaks, it breaks. And if someone has the time to fix it, so be it.
I mean, I guess the issue is that at the moment, the pipelines are the Docker publishing pipelines are kind of tied into the Alpine builds being available. So it really does break some of the main distribution mechanisms for the primary platforms as well at the moment, which is not ideal, I would suggest. So,
it's not ideal, and it does need to be solved. But again, I don't think it's a problem for unofficial builds. It's the fact that something has been built on it that shouldn't have been. Now, that doesn't excuse.
I agree.
As a whole needs to figure out how to solve that. But in terms of unofficial builds, the answer is not. No more attention needs to be paid to unofficial builds. And
we'll see how long it takes to hit us on 26.
I was going to say, if you are reliant on a platform that's in unofficial builds that really, really does matter to you, and you're willing to have a discussion with the foundation, maybe you can talk about sponsorship of getting that platform into a non-unofficial status.
It does make me nervous that I suspect there's quite a lot of people using the Alpine builds, probably because they pull it from Docker Hub and so don't know anything about the unofficial side of it. Think it's as legitimate as any of the others, but so far nobody has stepped up to do it. There's a part of me that would just want to try just switching off the Alpine builds and see what happens. I know that when we have had build breaks in there, people have generally, I think, tried to jump on them fairly quickly, but what's the implications of that? Is that a good state for such a platform to be in? I don't know.
I honestly don't know, because the Docker stuff, for as long as I've been involved in Node, has been delegated to the Docker working group. And I know we've now dissolved the Docker working group because the remaining members didn't feel empowered to make the decisions that the charter delegated to them. But it does the downside of the way Node operates, which is to delegate responsibilities to working groups, is the people
They can
outside
make
the
their
working
autonomous.
group to ignore what the working group was doing, which means that there's less knowledge about how that all works and how the decisions were made. So yeah, build has never been involved, as far as I know, in how the Docker working group works. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's always been outside of the release workflow. Doesn't help for people outside of the project who doesn't know how the project works, that they just assume that, like, if there's a security release, that should end up in a Docker image. It kind of did, but it wasn't on a critical path, because it's never been on the critical path, because it's not the way the project works. Yeah, it's the downside of the way Node has ended up governing itself.
Yep.
But there are other reasons why that it is that way. So it's not, it's not that we've got a bad governing model, but there are downsides to the governing model that we have adopted, and that's one of them.
I suspect in the Docker working group there was a bit of trying to be helpful to the community by making these things available. But the implications of it, particularly when we have to switch to different compilers and have extra dependencies on, gets interesting. And I guess what we've seen with the Rust Windows case, and we'll probably see with the RISC-V case, the cross-compilation issue could bite us a bit as well. And that's primarily with the unofficial builds, where we do that all over the place.
Node is intentionally set up that if you turn up to the project and you volunteer to do something, if there are no objections from like the rest of the project, then it generally happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are some guardrails around things that we might consider critical. So there are tighter bars to entry for things around like security and the sort of release pipelines that we do that puts the binaries up on the main website. But other than that, generally, if you show up to Node and it's mainly time. If you dedicate the time to work on something and push it through, it usually would end up happening, even if you have to engage with other members of the project who may disagree with you. But generally, if you have the time to work that through and you do it in a cooperative manner, it will get done. And I'm sure that the Docker working group was the same thing, where there were people involved in Node that were willing to spend the time to make all of that happen. But like with everything, not everyone sticks around forever. So, people come and go, and the people working there now are probably not the people that originally set it up. So they all mean well. I'm sure everyone means well. I mean, even like me, I'm not the original person that set up like the build working group. So although I'm probably the longest person currently involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not like people who came before me. So yeah, we are the current custodians of the various bits of the project we have, and we won't be the last, hopefully. So yeah, it's things change over time.
Okay. Any other topics you want to talk about?
Only to say publicly thank you to Ryan for updating the certificates on the various servers. And
yes, thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, we had a conversation the issue yesterday about the current certificate subscription ends in January, but we were I think Ryan said we could only reissue the new certificates until I think it's October. So come October, we're either going to need to reissue them again for
it's only 6 months. Okay,
very short amount of time, or by then hopefully have a plan of what are we going to do when the current subscription runs out, whether the foundation says we swap to something like Let's Encrypt, and then that means that by come October-ish and the end of the year, hopefully have the work in place or someone steps up to do the migration work to swap to that.
Yeah, there's part of me that is I just bought us 6 months to get Let's Encrypt all set up on everything so that we no longer have to worry about managing this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And then there's part of me that's like, well, I just set this all up. and I just had my hands and everything, and now I know where everything is. Maybe now is when I should do it. Like it's like I've got 6 months, but it's all fresh in my head right now. So maybe now's the
I
time
think
to.
I'm pretty certain that we had a similar conversation when we actually paid for this subscription, which would have been what, 4 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think I remember being in a conversation with Michael and Ben at the time, and I think we all said, yeah, it'd be good if we maybe looked at swapping to something else. And then I think part of it was that now we've paid for this, let's get our money's worth out of it. and the sort of pressure to move wasn't as high. But then
Yeah.
obviously get nearer and nearer to the end of this subscription, it's like, well, if we don't do anything, then we'll come to November, December, and then we're suddenly thinking, oh, we're going to have to pay for a new certificate because we're not ready yet to swap to whether it's Let's Encrypt or something else. It's like,
Well, and
we've run out of time now, and we need to have the website not be rejected by web browsers.
and to be fair, spending a couple hours
Yeah.
swapping out all the certs is also paying for it, continuing to, so
Yeah.
we're incurring a cost there, even if the certs are already paid for. The installation and renewal is costly as well.
Yeah, no, the docs we have, I sat down with Michael because we renewed it without really knowing how to do it. So
Mhm.
we were going through the dialogues and taking screenshots and writing it all down. And then I think the next year we went through the whole thing again, just making sure that the instructions still worked. So hopefully it was still relevant.
Yeah, no, it was great. That was actually I didn't have to think too much about,
Good. Because it's like you only do it once a year, and you just don't, if you're not doing it on a regular basis for anything else, you just forget about it, and then you come back to it, and it's easy to miss. I think there was like one or two steps where if you don't follow it exactly, you end up with a certificate on the machine that doesn't actually validate properly because you miss some of the things in the chain off.
Yeah, like one of the things I ran into yesterday was just the when they give you a cert, they give you the whole certificate chain. If you download the zip, you get 3 separate certs that you have to pile together.
Yeah,
and
but
then
the other one
you
has
have
them all pasted together. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't. There's your cert, and then there's the 3 that's in the certificate chain. One of them has all 3 the certificate chain posts together, and then there's one that has your cert on there. Well, what I didn't know is that your cert has to come first, because I pasted it all together, and our cert was on the end of the chain, and that doesn't work. It has to be the first one in the file. So that was a discovery when I tried to restart unencrypted, which was a nice nobody uses this server
Yes. Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah. No.
that
Yeah, I think was it you suggested one of the other issues going to like an Acme based, which I guess Let's Encrypt is.
Yeah.
But
yes,
like,
it is.
hopefully that will then take away a lot of the manual.
Well, and
have to remember how to do, not just the payment side of it, which is obviously a concern for a foundation, but yeah, the whole admin of doing the updates, which
right. And the thing is we already are doing that on one of our servers. We already have the unofficial build server set up with certbot and Let's Encrypt, and we don't have to update that cert. That's just it's like it's there. We have an example of this functioning and working. We just need to spread that.
It was originally, I think it was originally so this project used to host libuv downloads. And that server was the first to be set up with Let's Encrypt. So when Rod set up unofficial builds, instead of using the Node web certificate, he reused that. Well, not reused. He utilized what was done for libuv on unofficial builds, but we no longer look after the libuv infrastructure. They've now self-managed that themselves. So unofficial builds is still with the Let's Encrypt thing, but it wasn't the first thing that was set up with it. But yeah, like I said, it just needs someone to sit down and make it happen. Justice is a strong word. I guess the Cloudflare setup would be slightly different, or will it? I don't know.
Cloudflare, we can just stop managing. Cloudflare will do it for us. Like I'm not sure. One of the other projects that I manage certs for is jQuery, and they have some very particular needs about making sure that there's this really, really, really old trusted cert cross-signed thing, so that they break the least amount of things possible whenever they update their certs on their website, because so much of the web has a link to jQuery, and that
Yeah, it's interesting.
yeah. So that one
I
is tricky, that we have to have this really, really, really old thing. I don't know how much of the web links directly to Node.
probably
I
quite
don't-
probably more than we dare dare to think about. But
Well, the
yeah,
thing is, this was one of those things where it's going to break in 2 years anyways. But they were, they're like, well, that's 2 more years of things not breaking on people. But and these are like embedded devices, somebody's old Roomba or somebody's,
yeah,
tier one uh Kindle or something, like the kinds of stuff that is all getting, end of life to anyways. And
yeah.
it's just like, well, we just can't support, your smart TV from 2010 still
Hopefully
expecting it
there's
to function.
nothing like that dependent on Node, mainly because I don't think Node officially is in those embedded small devices that can't be updated. I
Yeah.
do vaguely remember when we bought this certificate that there was some initial switchover pain,
Hmm.
but I think it was transitory. But this was quite a while ago, and maybe the landscape 4 years ago is completely different to the landscape now. I think we've always found surprising things because we don't necessarily know. So like the questions you've had before about who's using unencrypted, the rsync point on unencrypted,
Hmm.
and it's like we don't know. And then some people have come out since to say they were. But we also found like at one point, Git GitHub was just pulling the binaries directly from our website and not caching anything. And then when we started having, before we moved stuff to R2 and we started overwhelming like the DigitalOcean droplet, we just suddenly started getting all this pressure from GitHub saying like people's CIs are failing. And it's kind of, well, if you're going to be pulling at that volume, and this is mainly static content, once you get
Hmm.
a version of Node, it shouldn't change. And yeah, it's not that it shouldn't be pulling, but it's like maybe if you're going to have that volume, you should be doing you should be doing caching at the GitHub level, which I think they are doing now. But yeah, there is some element of we don't really know who is pulling Node from the website and the download links. We get anonymized. Sorry, we do get logs. We anonymize them, but we're not actively scanning through, and we deliberately try to obfuscate the identifying information from those. So yeah, unless people are vocal, or more important, I guess, who was it? It's unless you turn it off and someone complains, don't necessarily know what the fallout's going to be on this. And yeah, I think the certificates are going to be, it's going to be what it is. I think the thing with certificates is there's the how it works in practice, and then there's also the theoretical side of it, which someone somewhere out there is probably doing, which is actually not just validating the chain, but maybe looking at the roots, which is
Hmm.
probably where the jQuery thing comes from. But
Right. Well, and that's just in order to the roots that are on these really old devices, all of them have expired except like one of them, and that's like the last resort in order to, and that people have been relying on is this like kind of side chain thing. But even that is only got like another year or two before it's like, okay, it just
I
doesn't
think
work anymore.
I think even our current well, our current certificate, not this issue, but one of the issues on this subscription, I think was caught up by something in the chain being swapped to a different route or intermediary, probably an intermediary,
Hmm.
and not everything catching up. I think it was something like I don't fully understand certificates, but there was something like there was an alternate path being offered, but not everything was able to use the alternate path, and then they ended up down a not being able to validate the chain. So I vaguely remember there was something in the past where even with the thing we've got at the moment, something in the chain that changes can just break things that, it's not necessarily that we've changed anything on our end, but it can still cause validation problems in the certificate chaining. Um,
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's not the case with this new one.
Yes. Anyway, once again, thank you, and yeah, hopefully we'll get to the point where this will become less necessary, well, not unnecessary in the future.
Okay. Anything else we want to talk about?
Just as we mentioned that our sync server, I think we should just shut it off. I think we should just
Right. Yeah.
like I've been trying to figure out whether or not our clone would be a good substitute for them, and if there's anything we need to do to make our clone work. But the current server hasn't been syncing since like 2024, so I it's not serving any purpose as it is now, and so it would be lovely to just completely remove that server entirely from the infra. Because I think that's its only purpose. It's the former unencrypted server. It's not unencrypted anymore. It doesn't. It's just sort of a place where backups are, but we already have a backup server. It's no longer backed by Cloudflare. It's no longer really doing anything. It used to be a lot of things, and now it's not. And the only thing it was doing is the rsync, and so that's the reason it's on. But I feel like we've neglected making rsync function long enough that it's evidence that it doesn't need to.
Yeah,
So
I think I'm okay with retiring it, and like I
yeah,
said, if someone really needs it, we can start a different discussion. But I don't think we should try
yeah,
and keep something working that it's obviously not working. Yeah, it like I said, it's not been kept up to date, so it isn't really serving whatever purpose. So yeah, okay.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I'm going to stop recording. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk next week.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.
thanks.